Hello, everybody, and welcome into the Apples and Ginos Fantasy Hockey Podcast. My name is Nate Groot-Nippelink, and I will be your host. And of course, I have your friend and my best friend, Blake Creamer, with me. Blake, how are we feeling tonight?
We are feeling like a beautiful and unique snowflake. It's it's good to see you, my man. It feels like it's been a long time. I hate the off season. All right. I'm done with the off season. Can we just start? You know what I love? There's some development camps going on now for the NHL. And in my mind, I'm like, oh, it's the NHL. Great. Let's go watch 3-on-3 scrimmages. How about now?
Yep.
All right. That's not good. But I'm enjoying the development camps, the draft, the free agents. It's an exciting time. So we're getting there. We're getting closer.
We are getting closer. Free agency really marks that point where it's like the kickoff of my projections in earnest. Until now, I've been kind of dawdling along, doing some of the big names where you know that the situation's not really going to change. It's going to be pretty much the same thing all over again, just getting those out of the way. But yeah, now we've got a lot of the teams a lot more settled. We've got some of the big names moving. Still waiting for a few yet, but definitely most of the things have happened so far. Now, before we get into all of that, we do need to take a moment, take a breath, and evaluate ourselves personally. We need to take some time for our personal question of the day. Blake, are you ready for that?
I'm going to take a minute and reflect while you give me this question here, just so I'm ready, just so I feel good. I'm going to ground myself.
Okay. The personal question of the day is, what was your favorite subject in school?
Spare. You know, that's, oh my God. You know,
you're literally like the 5-year-old kid who's like, recess.
It's recess. Yeah. But in school, you know what? I was pretty good in school. I did, this is not a brag, but like I have like a good processing brain. I was able to do a lot with very little work. All right. Let's say that.
Nice.
Up to grade 11, and then grade 12 came along, and all the courses where I was doing no homework and not paying attention, I started bombing big time. So I just dropped everything. And so basically my grade 12 year was a bunch of spares and English 12. Nice. Which I needed to graduate. It was nice. I almost failed that too. But to answer your question, Nate, I think my favorite subject in school, physical education. All right. That's fair. A safe answer, but if we were playing a sport that I didn't like, I would skip that too. All right. Don't skip school, kids. If you're listening to this, stay in school. All right. Don't do what I did. All right. You see the result here. But yeah, physical education was nice. That's where I played ball hockey. We had a little ball hockey league in high school. Mm-hmm. It was actually pretty sweet. Our gym teacher, she took it very seriously. And I swear, this might be the reason why I'm into fantasy hockey now. We had captains every year. We did a full draft. The top six scorers in the league would draft from a list, and we would have our teams. And I was a captain for the last 3 years. So yeah, ball hockey and gym. Oh my God, I'm kind of getting jacked up right now. I want to go play. Maybe Nate and I are going to meet up in the summer. We're going to do a little ball hockey action. But yeah, phys ed, book it. That's where we're at.
Nice. Yeah, it's pretty hard to beat that. And yeah, anybody who's into hockey probably shares some of those sentiments, I would imagine. For myself, my favorite subject in school, I'm sure this is going to come as a shock to everyone who's listened to this podcast before, but it was math. I am one of those nerds. Yeah. I don't know what I can really say for myself. I was definitely into math. I took some college math courses in high school by correspondence, which I don't recommend. Yeah, I was into math in a really big way, and it served me well in life. Like it's not the worst thing, but it is not something that you typically admit to potentially hundreds of people on a podcast. So there's that as well.
Buddy, you're the human calculator, all right? Don't be modest, all right? This man, has anyone seen The Beautiful Mind? All right? That's what we're dealing with here, all right? This man's a savant.
Wasn't he schizophrenic? Isn't that?
No, I didn't. Oh, I didn't watch the end of it, so I don't know what happened there. But all I know is the man was amazing at math, right? So, I thought it was just a kind of a mathematical love story. That's what I thought.
We might have to fact check you on that one.
No, don't fact check anything I say. That's all right.
All right. Well, we should get into this because we've got a lot to talk about. There has been a lot that has happened since the last time we talked, Blake. Not the least of which is the NHL draft. There's not too much, obviously. Had a good chat with Victor Nuno before the draft, and we ran through a lot of the players just to bring everybody some background on these players at least. But post draft, just kind of wanted to run through 5 takes that I had, and Blake, you can fill in if you think I'm off base on anything here. First take off the top, have to talk about Connor Bedard in Chicago. With the moves that Chicago's made since then, and we will talk about those, I'm calling it now. Bedard is going to hit 70 points in year one. I think he's special. I think, Patrick Kane hit 72 points his rookie year. I think that's well within reach. Wrote about that on an article for Yahoo this past week. And I think Bedard is going to be that dude from day one. How about that, Blake?
Yep. No, I'm right in line with you again with the moves made here. I was feeling this a little bit even before those moves were made. So one thing I like about Bedard a lot is his mentality kind of coming into it. And I've mentioned that before, but he just seems like he got a really good head on his shoulders. And,
Yep.
He's been the guy for a long time now, and he's unflappable, right? He's good to go. He doesn't seem to be weighed down by the moment. So I'm excited to see this guy, and his team's not looking as bad as once thought. So I think 70 points, pretty reasonable.
All right, take number 2. Fantilli will play year one after signing his entry-level contract, and he'll actually do something for the ceiling of those players in Columbus. I like this a lot. No disrespect to Boone Jenner, but I think Fantilli's ceiling is a lot higher. Maybe not this year, but definitely I think by the end of the year, he could take a step. He's already been playing against men. He's been showing out in the NCAA, and I think he's ready to take it to the next level and have an immediate impact in the Blue Jackets lineup.
Yep. Love it. Totally agree with 99% of that, except the Yang you were talking on Boone Jenner. We don't do that on this podcast. All right, Nate, come on. That's fine. All right. You're forgiven. But yeah, this is going to be awesome. I think he's going to be second line center right off the hop, if he does play. And I think he will. Like, why wouldn't he? Signed his ELC. I think he's going to play as long as he has a good camp. He'll come in and he's getting access to good players, probably power play too as well. I think I like, he's a special player as well, right? Like, it seemed like a consensus guy that would have been number one if he wasn't drafted in the same year as Connor Bedard. So we should be excited about Fantilli, and I love the fact that he's potentially playing next season. All right, just don't take Boone Jenner off line one. All right, come on. We need Boone Jenner out there for one more season so I can be vindicated, for my Boone Jenner love.
Fair enough. Number 3, I think Montreal really possibly had the worst outing of anyone over the NHL draft week. First, they trade away first and second round picks for Alex Newhook, who is trending towards becoming a replacement level player at this point. If you look at his comparables, where he's at after 3 years in the league, multiple opportunities to crack the top 6 in Colorado, play with some really good players, and couldn't make anything of it there. Don't think that changes in Montreal. And then the pick of David Reinbacher at 5th overall, probably a safe pick. Like, he's going to play in the league. He's going to do well. I've heard occasional scouts talk about him having some offensive upside and being like an actual legit top pair shutdown guy, like do it all. Jeff Petrie maybe as a comparable. I don't know. That's the odd scout. That's not the consensus by any stretch. And so I really think that Montreal really hurt themselves and their future outlook. I was really hoping for something for Cole Caulfield, especially to play alongside. Suzuki is fine with Caulfield, but one more really solid playmaker to add to that power play or something like that would have really raised the bar for Caulfield in my mind, and that's who I'm most excited about in Montreal.
Yeah. Montreal just tooted in all their fans' faces, like right in an open mouth. Like, what, I don't know what they were doing there. And this is nothing against David Reinbacher. Like, that guy's, he's going to be a beauty. I think he'll be, I do think he's a very safe pick, and he's going to play, and he'll probably do well. Like, he's going to be a good real life defenseman, I think. But why didn't you trade down? I think that's what everyone was asking. If Reinbacher's your guy, trade down. You had a top 5 pick. You left, Ryan Leonard on the board. You left Michkov on the board. How do you explain that to your fan base? I don't know. And then, the Newhook thing, we'll talk about that a little later, but big haul for Alex Newhook. I mean, are they going to give him opportunity? because they better if they, you know, the investment they put into him. So yeah, I agree with you there. Montreal, not a good look. I hate the hate that Reinbacker's been getting. That sucks.
Yeah, no,
You know,
that's
that really
ridiculous.
sucks. The guy's awesome. You know, it's not his fault, but yeah, the top 5 in this draft, no, that makes no sense.
Yep. And to lead into the next one, you mentioned Matvei Mishkov at 7 to the Flyers. I think he's an absolute steal. This guy, if you look at one of the things that I like to look at in my analysis is hockey prospecting. Byron Bader on Twitter has a really interesting model where he maps comparables based on what players have done statistics-wise through their draft -1 and draft 0 years. And Michkov's comparables, similar to Bedard, are all literal Hall of Fame level players. Like there's nothing that you can say about Michkov other than he's probably not going to come over to the NHL right away. He's got a contract, I believe, till 2026 over in the KHL. It seems like the Flyers are not worried about that. It sounds like they kind of snuck him out to their facility and had a good chat with them before. I was reading some stuff about that. So it seems like they're pretty comfortable about his timeline. Even if it is like 3 years out, like that's not the end of the world. This is a potential like Ovechkin, Kaprizov level talent, like 100+ point player potential. To get him at 7 in any draft is just ridiculous in my estimation. So I think Flyers fans have got to be loving this.
Yeah, just seems like a slam dunk to me. You know, I don't have too much to say about it. It was a surprise to me that he fell that long, like 7. This guy was being compared with Connor Bedard. So, yeah, it's great for Philadelphia. You know, I guess, you know, if he's in Russia, they have no real control over the development. I think that's a key thing. And then the geopolitical issues, sure. But I don't know, like 3 years, he could come over and literally be Kaprizov, you know, or better, you know. So I don't know. It's a great swing for the Flyers, and I thought they had a pretty solid draft.
Yep, absolutely agree. Last one here. I really like Zach Benson. Victor Nuno really liked Zach Benson when he was on the podcast last week talking about him. I think him going to Buffalo is super interesting. They've developed quite the little stable of young forwards. I can really see Benson fitting in well with a Tage Thompson type as well. Put him on the wing with Thompson and Skinner maybe for the next 5 years. I really think that could be something. I'm pretty excited about Benson to Buffalo, and I'd be really interested in drafting him. I'm actually in my dynasty draft. I have a 5th overall pick, and I'm pretty confident it's with a bunch of guys that Victor with the Fantasy Hockey Life subscribers that I got into a couple years back. And so I'm pretty sure like Michkov's going to be gone. Nobody's going to be worried about that. I think that, you know, like Carlson, Fantilli, Bedard, obviously probably going to be gone by my pick. And so I'm thinking it might be Benson at 5 for me because I'm pretty excited about the upside in Buffalo.
Oh, you're loving it. Yeah. Buffalo, it just seems like out of nowhere. Like, I don't know. I'm not really big in prospects, so you know maybe this has been cooking for a long time. But obviously, with Tage and Dylan Cousins going off, and Owen Power having a good season this last one, then Dahlin going crazy, and then you got these guys in the bank. Oh my god! And who's that other guy they have, Savoy or whatever? Like what?
Yep.
What are they?
Matthew
What are
Savoy.
they? What are they doing over there? It's exciting stuff. So yeah, I like Benson a lot. It killed me actually when the Canucks are at 11. I'm like, Benson is right there, you know, and the Canucks picked what looked like for position as opposed to best player available. And that pisses me off. Oh my God. But you know, Tom Willander looks pretty good too, but Benson, oh my God, this guy's going to be a beauty. So I'm excited too. Yeah. Great pick for Buffalo. What the hell is happening over there?
All right. Love to see the NHL draft take place. It's super exciting. We were talking about before this, like, can we just go next year? Can we get some credentials, apples and Ginos, get ourselves in there? It's rumored to be in Vegas, which would be obviously pretty lit, as the kids like to say.
Oh
so
my God.
I don't know.
We're there. We're 100% there. Book it, Nate, myself, Josh, Binksy, anybody else in the apples and Ginos group. We're there. We are there. We're crashing it, credentialed or not. All right.
Love it. All right, we got to get into the rest of this. There's lots to talk about. So, we're going to obviously try to get through as many of these signings and trades as we can. We may have to rush through a little bit, but we definitely want to spend some time on the ones that are most impactful for fantasy. Going to start with the trades that happened. There were a lot of trades in this period, a lot of cap maneuverings, especially a lot of the bottom dwelling teams moving up to get to the cap floor with some of these deals, taking advantage of some of these cash strapped teams, and yeah, just kind of taking their picks and taking their players too. So really like to see it. Obviously, we're going to go in order of importance here, which means that Ross Colton to Colorado is the most important deal that happened in the past week. Oh my goodness, Blake, can we get any more hyped about Ross Colton going to Colorado for a 2023 second?
Buddy, this is the most hyped I've ever heard, Nate, on the podcast. Oh my God. Ross Colton, he's a second rounder now in draft season. Book it. I love it. Actually, this is good stuff, right? This is a guy you've been talking about for a little while. You've been excited about for a while. And yeah, let's see what he's gonna get. Top 6 minutes, most likely. Oh my God. Like he averaged 12 minutes and 20 seconds time on ice last season. That is not gonna happen this year in Colorado. He's going to be up around 15 at least. Like, what if he gets the top 6 treatment there in Colorado? Ross Colton, he's only 26. He's a beefer. This guy got 188 hits last season. Does he get on the power play? Power play 2, maybe? Power play 1 even? Oh my God. Like, what are the range of outcomes for Ross Colton? Like in your estimation, Nate, what do you think?
So range of outcomes, like I definitely think he's no worse than a third line player on that team right now. If you look at Daily Faceoff, they have their fourth liners right now as Frederick Olofsson, Ben Myers, and Andrew Cogliano. I don't think Ross Colton is threatened by any of those guys. Over top of them, you've got McKinnon, Rantanen, Lehkonen, Johansson, Nichushkin. Daily Faceoff has Jonathan Drouin, who's an interesting signing right now on the top line left wing. I think that could be Colton, to be honest. He could go right up there. They showed they were willing to try pretty much anyone up there. Evan Rodriguez got run on that top line. There's a real range of outcomes here with Ross Colton, which makes him super exciting. The advanced stats have always been terrific with Colton in low minutes work with Tampa Bay. He's never had more than 12 minutes and 47 seconds average time on ice in a single season, but he's always had a really high IPP, so he's always been really involved with however many goals his team was scoring while he's on the ice. He's averaging in like the high 70s for IPP over his career, which is like Sidney Crosby stuff. Obviously, he's not Sidney Crosby, but it shows that like when that third line or fourth line or whatever line he's been on has been cooking, he's been the one doing the cooking. And then he's also, even despite not having much to play with, he's averaged over 9 shots per 60, which is really solid. This past year, over 10 individual scoring chances, 4 per 60. Last couple of years, right there as well. Really good advanced numbers from Ross Colton every single minute he's been on the ice as an NHL player. And so I'm really excited about what he could be. If you told me right now that he played 82 games as the left winger for Nathan McKinnon and Mikko Rantanen, I would say he scores 70 points right now. I don't think that's a stretch, to be honest. I really think that's within the range of possibilities. And I just couldn't be more excited about the potential here with Colton. He'll definitely be a late round dart throw for me in every single draft if I can get him. Not much more I can really say. I want to keep talking about Ross Colton, though, because I've been on this guy for a while now, and it really seems like he might be in line for a big breakout.
Yeah, I love that, man. Everybody write this down. All right. Ross Colton. This is your late round flyer guy, and not even he might be worth a reach a little bit. So obviously assess like kind of on the back end of your drafts there. But if training camp comes up, this guy's in the top 6. It's go time. All right. It's Ross Colton go time. I'm excited about this guy too. And then obviously Cats Leagues, B for Sutherland over here. All right. So we love that. Get him on the power play too. Nice.
Absolutely. All right, to one of the less exciting signings and tradings, I guess you would say here. Pierre-Luc Dubois signs and then is immediately traded $8.5 million times 8 seasons to the Los Angeles Kings for a bunch of picks and people, including Alex Iafallo and Gabriel Velarde. Obviously, they paid a lot of money to him. They gave up a lot to get him. The LA Kings certainly have a plan here for Dubois. Curious your thoughts, Blake. Is he immediately top power play? Obviously, second line center behind Kopitar for now, but is that the succession plan here? And how does that affect Quinton Byfield?
Yeah, I mean, for me, Byfield, I think he kind of, his development is going to be stunted a little bit, right? Because they got this guy in here now. Pierre-Luc Dubois, he is going to be behind Kopitar, I think, for at least one more year, but it could be a passing of a torch situation this year. Like Kopitar plays a boatload of minutes and he's not getting any younger, you know? So I'm sure there will be times during the season where Dubois plays on the top line, right? And where he rips up there. But one thing about Dubois is like, I feel like last season, I don't know how much more he has to give. You know, like he played 73 games, 18 and a half minutes time on ice. He had a good power play performance as well, 23 power play points. You know, his on ice numbers were pretty reasonable as well. Like, you know, on ice shooting percentage 12.2. His shooting percentage was 13.2. That's all reasonable, right? I just don't know how much more room he has to go. Right. So it's a good situation for him, but he was playing with good players in Winnipeg as well. So I don't know. I'm tempering expectations a little bit for Dubois. Something I've said here on Twitter as well is I think at some point in the contract, he's going to get probably, you know, over 70 points, but I don't know that it's going to be much more than that unless something special happens. You know, he gets like really good chemistry with Kevin Fiala or something, or he really locks down power play one and starts just going off like 30 power play points or something. But I just don't see it. But he's, and it's a player on a new team as well, right? Like I always temper expectations on a player on a new team. Like he's there for 8 years or 3 years, and then he's going to decide he wants to go to another team, right? But but he's there for 8 years, so he's in for the long haul. He's putting roots down, so he's going to learn the system. But I'm tempering expectations a little bit. I think we'll probably see a similar season to what he did last year in his first season in LA. That's my 2 cents.
Yeah, I think you're probably pretty much bang on. Last year paced for 30 goals, 71 points in about 18 and a half minutes time on ice. Do like that individual scoring chances 4 per 60, rank 27th in the league. So that's pretty hot. Definitely think that he's got lots of potential. When you're paying him that money, it's hard to see him not on the top power play there. And as the obvious succession plan for Kopitar, probably playing with Fiala, which is probably their best player, maybe the best player that Dubois played with for any extended period of time. So if that happens, that'd be an interesting line. But then also you do have that new situation. Might take him a little while to get acclimated. I'm not going to be chasing Dubois next year based on this, but I do think that pretty much in line with last year is where I'd have him. Tyler Toffoli, number 3 on this list, goes to New Jersey for Yegor Sharangovich in a third. I think Toffoli really kind of was a little bit redlining, I would say, in terms of what he's shown us in the past and what he did this year. The catch there is he was only averaging just over 60 and a half minutes time on ice in Calgary. You could see a world where that goes up in New Jersey, and obviously playing with Jack Hughes, if that happens, seems like it would be likely to happen. If that does happen, that's obviously a boon for anybody. 11th in shots per 60 and 39th in individual scoring chances 4 per 60. This guy is a shot-producing machine for sure, so we love that about Tyler Toffoli. A little bit interesting to see how that works with Hughes as a volume shooter himself. So I don't know if they'll be terrific line mates necessarily, but you would expect that both will be on the top power play, and they should be able to do something together. I posted it to Twitter. This is kind of my take for the time being. Is last year I would have said I think it's pretty unlikely that he repeats this 34-goal, 73-point pace again next year. Now in New Jersey, that feels a little bit more likely.
Yeah. I mean, this is New Jersey's top 6. What the hell? Oh my God. Like I'm
sexy.
It's very sexy for fantasy. Oh man. Like you could just draft them 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Oh, thank you very much. And then take Dougie Hamilton on the back end. Love that. But I think Toffoli, it's a great signing for them, but I'm not sure that he is going to get power play 1. I think that's not a lock. right? Because they just locked up Jesper Bratt as well, and obviously Timo Meyer, and
Yep.
like they just have an embarrassment of riches there. So I feel like if he gets power play one, we might be able to see something similar to this last season here. Like he got 25 power play points last year with Calgary on that stinky
Yeah.
team, right? So that's really was his bread and butter, and that's kind of what had him not a breakout really, but like pop off the way he did, right? Like career high for Toffoli.
Yep.
So I think, yeah, obviously if he gets power play one, it's going to go crazy. But that's a really interesting point that you brought up about him and Jack Hughes both being like big shot producers, because just because they're both showing out for their advanced stats doesn't mean that when they play together, it's going to go swimmingly. We saw that a little bit with Timo Meyer last year and New Jersey, right? Like it wasn't really clicking. And I'm way higher on Timo Meyer now than I was when he went to New Jersey at the trade deadline last year, just because for the same reason with PLD, right? He's locked in there. He's going to learn the system. He's going to carve out his own role there. But yeah, I think if Toffoli doesn't work with Jack Hughes, like he goes to play with Nico Hischier, like, oh my God, that sounds amazing.
Yeah.
So I think it's a great situation for Toffoli. He's landed on his feet, no question. I think 70 points is pretty reasonable for Toffoli as well next season.
All right, number 4, Ryan Johansson goes to Colorado, 50% retained, which was a nice touch, and they traded literally nothing away. Alex Galchenyuk, who was promptly let go on the other side by Nashville. So obviously Johansson fills a need for them at 2C, and it's a pretty solid spot. Probably Lehkonen will be on that line. They've moved Rantanen between lines throughout most of Rantanen's career, really. Do you think he infiltrates that top power play unit? That'll really be the litmus test for his fantasy relevance in my mind.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. I mean, it's not a player I'm much more excited about Ross Colton than I am for Ryan Johansson. Obviously, like I think he's kind of a one-dimensional player at this point in his career, and which is a facilitator, and I don't even know if he's a lock on 2C. Obviously, I'd rather see Ross Colton in there, like rip him up, play with Lehkonen and Nichushkin, right? So, that said, power play is really going to be key for Ryjo. I believe, that's where he's going to make the bulk of his points, because I think he's just kind of a supplementary piece there, I believe. So if someone gets injured in that top 6, Ryan Johansson pops up and they move players to the wing or whatever. But he's just, I feel like he's kind of a safety piece as opposed to like a big core piece for them moving forward this year. That's kind of my thought on him. I'm not someone I'm super excited about.
Yeah, I think some people see him go to Colorado and be super excited to draft him, but unless he's on that top power play, I'm pretty much out on Ryan Johansson. Not a shooter, really just worked off facilitating. Philip Forsberg was pretty decent at that, at least for one season. But when Forsberg was out, Johansson was less than usable for fantasy. So it's going to be a similar story in Colorado. He's a guy who can provide when he's elevated by line mates, but it's really going to be about that power play unit for me. Moving on, another one that I'm actually pretty interested in is Sean Durzi going to Arizona for a 2024 second. I think there's definitely a scenario in which he's pretty much just their top defenseman right out of the gate. He plays like a ridiculous amount of minutes, and he actually provides a fair bit for fantasy. What's your take on the situation there, Blake?
We're going to the Jersey Shore. Oh, baby. I love me some Sean Durzi. I liked him a lot last year. I picked him up as like my 4th defenseman in a lot of spots, and it sort of worked out. I mean, 38 points in 72 games. Nice. But he also was a healthy scratch a couple times. Defensively, he's not blowing the doors down. So that might limit his time on ice, which I think he obviously needs that, right? He was just under 20 minutes average time on ice last season. So I'd like to see that go up. But I think they're kind of leaning his way for power play one there in Arizona. And it's going to be a good power play, I think. Damn. I mean, we saw what they did last season. I mean, at the last half of last season, I don't see why that's not really going to continue, right? They're all the same guys are there. They're a year older. Like Barrett Hayton's going to be much better. Just guys like that. I'm excited. A healthy Nick Schmaltz for the season. And I think Durzi's going to be the guy quarterbacking it. So I like Durzi. I think he can get 50 points with, 20 power play points, maybe something along those lines. We'll see. And he also blocks a lot. I like that about Sean Durzi. He's only got a couple seasons in the league, but 121 blocks first season, 142 last season. So he's getting you some good stuff in category leagues as well. Plus, he's just a beautiful man. All right. So unfortunately, he kills my boy, the juice box use of Valimaki, but Valimaki's got a bright future as well, but I think he'll probably be relegated to power play 2. So that's going to kill some of his fantasy value.
Yeah. Yeah, it'll be interesting to see that little battle probably emerge in camp one way or the other. I would put Dursey as a favorite myself. They obviously went out and acquired him. This is a team that's traded 4 picks and really traded anything of value away to get more picks, and they traded away a 2024 second. It's definitely not nothing to them to acquire Sean Dursey. It's definitely a player they're interested in having a big part of their future in my mind. One stat I will leave you with on Sean Dursey: 13th amongst all defensemen in individual scoring chances 4/60 last year. I think this is a guy who gets down in there and gets some pretty interesting high danger chances as a defenseman. So definitely someone that I'm interested in and could be a 10+ goal scorer, could be a 50+ point scorer in the right situation in Arizona.
Love it.
Another one here that definitely want to talk about going alongside the Connor Bedard talk is Taylor Hall and Nick Foligno, I guess, going to Chicago for Alec Regula and Ian Mitchell. Obviously, we're most excited about Taylor Hall in this scenario. Taylor Hall obviously did not have a terrific season, had less than 16 minutes average time on ice there in Boston. Was on a 48-point pace, 22-goal, 48-point pace. Had okay numbers under the hood, 78th in shots per 60, 71st in individual scoring chances, 4/60. Other than that, just kind of did what he's always done outside of that one MVP season.
Right.
I honestly think that this is exactly the kind of move that Chicago needed to do to let Bedard flourish in year one and just have somebody of a decent caliber to play alongside. And Taylor Hall is probably not, like a true top-line talent at this point in his career, but he's definitely a top 6 forward in the league and can definitely be the kind of side piece to Bedard that first year in Chicago in my mind.
You got Connor Bedard on the motorbike. You got Taylor Hall in the sidecar. All right. There's nothing more emasculating than the sidecar. Or actually, when I was going to school, my stepdad had a motorcycle, and sometimes if I was late, he would have to take me in, and I'd have to get on the back and like put my arms around my stepdad, and then just he would always drive me right up to the door, and I'd be like, oh my God, but that's my fault for sleeping in. Anyways, I don't know where I was going with that, but I agree with what you said. This is a great move for Chicago. I think Taylor Hall, I'm low key excited about what Taylor Hall can do with Chicago this year. Just looking at his ice time, right? I mean, he had a very down season last year, 36 points in 61 games. He played just under 60 minutes average time on ice. I think he's first line, first power play in Chicago. There's no one coming for those minutes. So could he play 19, 20 minutes? Could we see 20-minute Taylor Hall? Maybe. They were doing it to Maximus Domius. So, 20-minute Taylor Hall and first power play Taylor Hall, like with Connor Bedard out there. That's pretty nice. I mean, I think if he stays healthy, I think 65-point Taylor Hall. Yes. Maybe 70-point Taylor Hall. Oh my God. That might be a little spicy, but 60 to 65-point Taylor Hall, I think at this point in his career, like on that crappy team, I think that's this is a great move, and I love it. It insulates Connor Bedard a little bit and gives him someone who's been there before and someone who's been a first overall pick before. It's a great move. I was really happy to see it, and for some reason, I just wasn't thinking Chicago was going to do anything. I was like, oh, this is going to be terrible. Right. But no, they've got Taylor Hall. I still like Seth Jones. I mean, they'll have him on the power play there. Like, I mean, he's not, I don't really like Seth Jones, but he's a very serviceable NHL defenseman. He's going to play a ton of minutes, and they may not be as bad as we initially thought.
Yeah. I think actually Seth Jones might be a low-key winner in all of this too.
There you go.
Probably going to be a guy that's going to be completely passed over in most fantasy drafts just because people will be thinking about the stink of Chicago. And I think Seth Jones, with the additions of obviously Bedard, but Hall as well, and some of the other moves they've made, low-key interested in where Jones will be going. We'll check that ADP once we get into September.
Yes, sir.
Let's talk a little bit about Alex Newhook. We alluded to it before. I said I really don't like that deal. New Hook's numbers are just atrocious. 307th in shots per 60, 281st in individual scoring chances, 4 per 60. Is there a role in Montreal that would have you somewhat interested in drafting or even streaming Alex Newhook next year?
He's might be a watch list guy. Like, okay, throw him on the watch list and let's see what they do for deployment, right? But he's done
Sure.
nothing up to this point in his career that's getting me excited fantasy wise, right? Such a weird
Yep.
sentence. Getting me excited fantasy wise. Alex Newhook, no. But yeah, he just like a 33-point season, a 30-point season in full seasons, basically, right? He's playing under 14 minutes a night. Limited power play times, but I mean, Montreal gave up a ton to get him. So that leads me to believe that he's going to get a little bit of a look, right? Maybe at the beginning here, or yeah, I don't know, maybe halfway through the season. But no, I'm leaving him on the wire for sure. And if he starts popping off, then we'll take a look. But I don't see anything really that's sustainable. He's not a good shot generator. He's doing nothing on the power play. He barely hits. He doesn't block. Like, what are we doing here? It makes me wonder, like, and I'll give people the benefit of the doubt, but like, what do they see in this kid? Like, someone must see something and they're like, yes, this is absolutely worth these assets that we've moved over to Colorado. I don't get it. I don't know.
Yeah. I think that's totally fair. We're gonna keep rolling through these. Talk to me about one of these. We've got Anthony Duclair going to San Jose. We've got Riley Smith going to Pittsburgh. We got Corey Perry going to Chicago. We got Kevin Hayes going to St. Louis. Which of these has you the most hot and bothered for fantasy purposes?
Oh man. Can I answer none? Is that an answer? No. It's slim pickings. I guess I like Duclair. I want to see what Duclair does. San Jose doesn't have a lot going on there. And, we know Duclair can put up some reasonable advanced statistics at the very least. And he had a great season in Florida there on that season where everybody sort of had a nice achievement, like 58 points in
Yeah.
74 games, right? He had 21 power play points that season. So that's nice, right? So that is in his range of possibilities. There's something that he's capable of doing, but I don't know. I guess I want to see where he lines up in San Jose. Like he's going to get top 6. He might get top power play there. I think that's really key, but he might not. Right. So I think that's sort of the player I'm interested in there. Corey Perry. What the hell was that? I mean, Chicago's just
Yep.
handing out $4 million. Like, yeah, here you go, buddy. You won a Stanley Cup, $4 million for you. Right. And that all said too, like, I mean, we make fun of it because it's $4 million, but Corey Perry's a valuable player to have on your team. I think like he's a winner. He's a dingus, right? I think, but $4 million, come on. Blake Wheeler just signed for 800,000 K. What, no, this makes no sense, but obviously Chicago, they have unlimited cap space. So they're trying to reach the basement floor. So I guess I would say Anthony Duclair. I'm low key excited to see what he can do. I think 50 points might be something from Duclair that we could see with some reasonable power play numbers. I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah, Duclair actually would have been my choice as well. I think there's a chance that, similar to Taylor Hall in Chicago, that he's just like the only guy there and he ends up getting actually a ridiculous amount of minutes randomly in power play 1. And you look up at the end of the season and the guy's a 65-point scorer and he's been relevant all year for fantasy purposes. I think that's within the range of outcomes here. He's always been a pretty solid, if not completely spectacular, shot producer, scoring chance producer. Last year in 20 games, 10.7 individual scoring chances, 4 per 60. So definitely meets that threshold for me. If I had to go with another one from that group, I'd say Riley Smith to Pittsburgh is a little bit interesting, at least. Smith probably a tier down from Duclair in terms of his production. Like the rate stats, I guess I would say, but definitely a guy who can still facilitate. And, if through injury or some other means he gets onto that top power play, definitely think Riley Smith will produce at least a little bit for us in fantasy there. The only other two I had on the sheet here, Blake, Ivan Provorov to Columbus and Mackenzie Blackwood to San Jose. I don't think either of these are going to be super relevant. Do you have any passing takes on these? I think Provorov is blocked from any kind of fantasy relevance at this point. He's even been passed over by Philadelphia for power play roles and things like that. And Blackwood, I think we have to really see something from him before we believe in him as a goaltender again.
Yeah. I mean, Blackwood to me could be a 0G. contender, like if they give him the reins there, which I mean, who else are they going to give it to, right? They, so I mean that could be like a John Gibson situation next year. Like, oh, you need a bunch of saves. Like, okay, yeah, go stream in Mackenzie Blackwood, right? And
Yeah.
it's it is what it is. Ivan Provorov, yeah, that's a streamer at best. If you need blocks or maybe bangs, because I don't think he's going to do anything offensively. I've actually heard a few analysts like, kind of excited, not excited, but like, oh yeah, he's going to get like 40 points. Like, no, he's I just don't see Provorov doing that. I don't think that's in his wheelhouse anymore. Like, he's just out there to block shots and be a beefer, be a dingus. And yeah, I don't, especially with what they've got there in Columbus, right? Werenski's back. They traded for, some other guys. Who's the other guy they traded for? I can't think of it right off the top of my head. Damon Steverson. There you go. So yeah, Provorov's he's a role player, and he's out there to do a job, and he'll probably do it.
Yeah. Provorov has definitely had his fair share being a dingus this past year, so it wouldn't be new to him.
Yeah, exactly.
Let's get into the signings now. I've got a massive list here. We'll try to knock these out. We definitely have to take some time to talk about Timo Meier and our expectations there. The really interesting part of this for me, I think Meier is a terrific player, a guy who, just obviously had a terrible time adapting and was also completely snake bitten his entire time in New Jersey, essentially. Right. I don't think that's his outcome like next year or for the duration of this contract. Clearly the Devils don't think so either, going out and getting this deal done. I actually think this turns into a really good deal for them because of how bad it went for him.
Yeah, totally.
He could have been looking at 10+ million, I think, quite easily on the open market, but instead 8.8 for 8 years with the Devils. So the thing that really makes this interesting for me is in San Jose the last couple of years, well over 19 minutes average time on ice. In New Jersey, 17:47 in the regular season in the 21 games he was there. That's going to be really the kind of key question is, can he really get to the elite levels of fantasy production like he was actually in San Jose, despite the lack of talent? Can he really be that elite level fantasy producer with only 18 minutes? You think that the team influence obviously should mitigate some of that, but then again, we did see that the team didn't seem to do him any favors last year. What's your overall situation on Meier? Do you think he's still worth, like last year he was going in the second round, third round of drafts, I would say most places. Do you think he's still there or has he slipped?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think he's still there. I mean, maybe a couple spots, right? Maybe, end of the second round or, latest end of the third. But I think if you're getting Timo Meier at the end of the third, that's money in the bank. Yeah, I have the same concerns as you with Timo Meier. I think the ice time could be an issue, right? Timo Meier gets counting stats. That's one of the things we like about him, right? His rate stats are great, but he was also out there for like basically 20 minutes a night with San Jose. He was able to get those counting stats. So if you take 2 to 2.5 minutes away from that, right, he's not going to get as many counting stats. He's not going to get as many shots. He's not going to get as many goals, right? So that said, I think he's playing with infinitely better players. And I think New Jersey, just in general, last season, they were generating so many chances, but their shooting percentage was middling, right? Their conversion was kind of middle of the pack, where their chances were up at the top, right? So yeah. I think eventually that's going to sort of normalize, right? And you've got a player like this who puts so many chances out there, so many shots. His on ice shooting percentage was reasonable, but I think it has room for growth, especially with the caliber of players that he's playing with. So I think it's going to kind of even out in the end. I think this is probably like a 70 to 80 point player with awesome periffs, and they paid him as a first line power play player. So I think he's a lock on that first power play with those beauties. Oh man, look at that. Like Dougie Hamilton is another guy. Man, I love Dougie Hamilton. He's totally figured it out in New Jersey. And this team is going to be ridiculous. I think, we have expectations and then it all goes to crap, right? So, but looking at it right now, I'm like, man, they were like number 1 in the league in scoring chances for last year per 60. I think that should be a lock again this year, right? But I think that shooting percentage for the team should go up as well, like more in the upper tier. So I think he's going to have a great season.
Yeah, I really like Meier. He always ticks those boxes for me in terms of the shot production, the scoring chance production. Last year, 5th in shots per 60, 4th in individual scoring chances 4 per 60, right up there with Matthews, Pasternak, all these kind of guys, all the elite guys. Timo Meyer is right there, just incredible numbers. So I really think that Meyer can be that guy in New Jersey. He's never been a high conversion shooter the way that Matthews and Pasternak are, and that kind of keeps him that tier down, that tier back from them. Literally, he shot just over 12% last year, and that was the best number of his career. So he's definitely a volume guy more than a conversion guy, but that still works for us in fantasy for sure. He still paced for 42 goals last year as a result. And yeah, you have to assume that it gets better next year. Has a full offseason to work himself in. You'd have to think that he's a little bit more comfortable overall. Could be, a little bit of a slow start again. You hope that he just kind of meshes immediately, but could be a little bit of a slow start again. But I am definitely back in on Meyer for next season. I'm just never not going to bet on this kind of profile, right? Like, how can I not bet on the guy who's literally one of the top 5 players in all the metrics that I talk about every single week?
You
just have to be in on this guy.
We're in.
So that's it with Timo Meyer. Next guy on the list, and we'll kind of do this as a two-parter, I guess, because Tyler Bertuzzi, 5.5 for one season to Toronto, and then it just got announced before we started here, Max Domi, $3 million 1 year to Toronto as well. These guys coming in today. What's the initial thought here? Do you have a ceiling in mind for either of these players? Where do they slot into the Toronto lineup?
Bang. Well, I think Bertuzzi's the real win here. And it's nice to get him on the 1 year. Like, he's coming off a down season. So it sounded like he was looking for term and he wasn't really getting the number that he wanted, the salary number that he wanted. So he kind of pivoted. He's like, okay, let's get on a contender and just take a 1 year deal. Right. So I think it's smart for him as long as he stays healthy and doesn't, have the wheels fall off or something, but he's going to get top 6 there. And the top 6 in Toronto is stupid. It's freaking stupid. So, and he can just fit right in there. He'll get power play 2, most likely. I don't see how he's going to get power play 1. They're kind of locked there. But I think Bertuzzi is a great signing. So I think, what did he have? 30 points in 50 games last year. I think we're looking closer to his pace is last season in Detroit. I think that's kind of where I see him. The one thing that happened that season is he was getting buku minutes, right? He just under 20 minutes average time on ice. I don't see how that's going to happen here in Toronto, just because they have guys that do that, right? They got to get Nylander, right. They got to get Marner, that core 4, they got to get them going, right? So Bertuzzi is going to be a supplementary piece to them, but this guy is a massive upgrade on the bunt cake. Michael Bunting, get the hell out of my sight. We got Bertuzzi. So I like, he's an upgrade there. I think he's better offensively. So I think, a 70, 75 point pace for Bertuzzi makes sense to me. And then for Maximus Domius, return to the Mac. That's a nice little piece. I think he's going to be more like the third liner, kind of his role that he played in Dallas. I think that's kind of what we can expect from Domi, like an energy guy out there pissing people off. And, obviously if there's injuries throughout the lineup, I'd rather call up, Max Domi than a guy like Kerfoot, you know what I mean? Or like Engvall, like this guy, this is a guy that can actually do something with the offensive minutes. So it's a nice piece there. So 2 great signings after a couple, questionable signings there from Brad Tree Living. I don't know what his name is, but and Ryan Reeves. All right. You got a beefer extraordinaire there, a beefer with cheese. So yeah, well, I don't know. What do you think of your Toronto Maple Leafs there, my man?
Oh man, we don't have enough time. There's not enough time for this podcast. What we have left here to get into exactly what I think about what the Leafs have done this offseason. I'm not happy overall, but I would say that I do like the Bertuzzi signing. I think he has comparable numbers to Michael Bunting, who it looks like a pretty obvious role replacement. Let one go, bring the other in. Obviously, you get the flexibility with just the 1 year before you have to deal with the Matthews and Nylander contracts next year coming online. Depending, of course, what they do with Nylander, it sounds like Matthews is going to get done no matter what they have to pay. So, I just think that Bertuzzi is an immediate upgrade on Bunting. Definitely a guy who's shown the ability to convert. So Bunting has been a guy who, he'll get the shots per 60. Like, in Arizona, he was shooting at like 6.5 shots per 60. Then he goes to Toronto and gets all that deployment with the great line mates, and all of a sudden he's like 8.25 average shots per 60. Bertuzzi's been slumming it out there in Detroit, although he did get a fair amount of play with Dylan Larkin, but obviously not playing with the kind of caliber of players as Bunting has with Matthews and Marner for most of the past couple seasons. So I think Bertuzzi's definitely got a ceiling here. He's probably not going to get more ice time than he's ever had before. Bunting last year, 15 minutes, 47 seconds average time on ice. I don't see Bertuzzi getting much more than that, maybe a little bit under Sheldon Keefe. But I do think that this is a guy who's shown the ability to convert at a higher level, 16+% every single year in Detroit since 2018. Right. So I think that this is actually a guy who could be a pretty sneaky 30-goal scorer next year if all goes well. So definitely a guy you're going to be wanting to look at for fantasy purposes. Max Domi, I'm not going to be super interested in. It's just a guy who, due to injury, gets promoted up the lineup, and he's relevant for a stream here or there. That's pretty much it for me with Domi. All right, let's keep rolling. Let's talk about Ivan Barbashev, $5 million, 5 years to Vegas. Obviously, somebody who won a cup in Vegas and they rewarded him. That seems to be the prevailing sentiment there. This is not a guy who captures my attention in any of the metrics that I look at. 369th in shots per 60, 251st in individual scoring chances, 4 per 60 last year. Paced for 45 points with 16 goals. I don't know if there's too much to say here. I think Barbashev will probably be around that. Maybe he gets a little better, but it's definitely not a guy I'm going to be super into when looking at my fantasy drafts next year.
Come on, Bobby, let's go party. Oh, Barbie, what are you doing? No, yeah, you want a cup? What? We can't even say anything. I was thinking about Mark Stone the other day. I was like, Mark Stone? What the hell? Like, I looked at his salary. He was like making 10.5 mil. I was like, Mark Stone. All right. Leo Draisaitl makes 8.5. All right. This makes no sense. And I'm like, the guy won a cup. I'm like, what do you do? You're like, okay, we'll pay you 20 mil. Just win the cup. So that's fine. Yeah. So that's what they're doing with Barbashev here. 5x5. That's fine. His line looked good though. So he's Marchessault's a guy I like in Vegas. I think Marchessault's going to blast off. He's in a contract year. Obviously, he won the Conn Smythe there, but Barbashev's a part of that. So it makes sense. It's an overpay, but whatever. It's not a guy I'm picking up next season.
Definitely. Let's keep rolling. Let's talk about Connor Brown going to Edmonton on a 1-year deal as well. It's a common theme you'll see with a lot of these guys. Take in the 1 year, wait for the cap ceiling to go up, and hopefully cash in after a good season on a good team. 1 year, $4 million deal for Connor Brown. I think this is probably a pretty interesting one. Connor Brown has shown the ability to play in top sixes before and be relatively productive for fantasy purposes. I don't think this is like a Zach Hyman situation where all of a sudden, just because he's playing with McDavid or Draisaitl or something like that, that he's all of a sudden a 90-plus point player. I don't think that's in the cards, but I do think that if he does get dealt into that top six, if he does see a lot of time alongside McDavid, then there's definitely 60-plus point upside here. What do you think, Blake?
Yeah, this one's interesting to me. It's not very easy to predict because Connor Brown's numbers, they're not impressive in any way. Right? The best seasons of his career were when he was with Ottawa and he was getting an amazing deployment there. But a lot of that was he's doing defensive work. He was like JT Compher out there, right? Like playing 20 minutes a night, shorthanded, face-offs, this and that, or whatever. But he doesn't do anything peripherally, so that's an issue. He doesn't do anything on the power play, or he hasn't so far in his career. So it's interesting to me. And I read something too, and I didn't confirm this, but he played with Connor McDavid in junior, something like that, or like yeah, that's right. So they have a little bit of a connection there. So that leads me to believe that he's going to get a look with Connor McDavid. So that's obviously great, but I mean, temper expectations. Like, who else got a shot with Connor McDavid? Kyler Yamamoto. That show ain't no good. Also, Ty Ratty. That show ain't no good, right? So this is not a guy. I mean, this is an interesting piece. It's a watch list for me, right? Let's see how he does in preseason. Let's see where they're lining up. He's obviously not getting on power play 1, so that's going to cap him there. I think it's probably closer to like 45 to 55 points for Connor Brown to me, if he stays healthy, right? He's had some issues with that as well. He's coming off a big injury. So yeah, it's a nice little signing though. They also had like a little, a contract hack there too. I think that it only goes like 800K on the cap or something, but they're paying him $4 million with like signing bonuses because he came off LTIR or something like that. So it's a no-brainer for Edmonton to get this man in here. Let's see what he does.
Yep. Yeah, I have some love for Connor Brown. I'm not expecting a whole lot, but definitely see the potential upside case if he does get on the top line. So definitely another guy that you can look at in the late rounds as someone who actually has some upside. Yeah, not someone to be too excited about, but definitely someone that you want to take over your really boring veterans who you know are just not gonna exceed what you're expecting. So he fits into that category for me. Another player who's kind of a boring old veteran at this point, but did not get paid like one. Alex Killorn gets 6.25 per on a 4-year deal to Anaheim. This is an interesting one. Definitely an overpay, but probably one that Anaheim can kind of afford to do, considering the youth of their team and how they're building. They'll have a lot of guys on entry-level contracts, providing a lot of the main part of their scoring, hopefully, over the next few years. So maybe something that doesn't truly destroy them in the long term with this contract. Definitely, I think it probably helps a few of the other players on that team, like Mason McTavish. He could be on that line with McTavish and just provide him, an actual NHL caliber winger to play with. So that would be nice. I do think there's a scenario in which Killorn plays on the top power play and plays on the top line, and then you're a little bit interested, especially if he starts creeping up past 18 minutes time on ice per night. Last year, 17-12 in Tampa. But this is not a guy to get excited about in terms of his statistical profile for sure. 307th in shots per 60, 254th in individual scoring chances for per 60. He's just never been that guy. He's had a couple of outlier seasons in terms of his shooting percentage, which I think has really elevated his kind of face value around the league. And I really just don't think he's that guy, especially away from the Kucherovs and the Stamkoses that they had in Tampa. Your thoughts, Blake?
Yep. Yeah. Totally on board with all of that. I think, he had a great contract here, 65 points in 82 games. That's pretty nice. But yeah, his shooting percentage was 19.4, right? And his career average is 12.6. So he's redlining a little there. That's going to regress. And obviously he's playing on Tampa Bay, right? So, his on-ice shooting percentage, I think it's here. Yeah. 14%. That's way high, right? So that's going to go down. Tampa Bay to Anaheim. All right. Now you're playing with Frank the Tank Vetrano. All right. So, that on-ice shooting percentage is going to go down. That means his points are going to go down, right? But I agree with everything you said. I think it's a good hockey trade for them. Get a guy in there with experience. He's won the cup. To help with these younger guys. He's got a bit of sandpaper too, Killorn. So I think, yeah, it's good for the Anaheim Ducks to bring their players in there with a player like this. But for fantasy, not someone I'm going to be touching unless, those things you said happen. Like he gets on power play 1 and then maybe we're talking, right? But that said too, Anaheim, of course, has what looks like the best streaming schedule for the entire season. Next season, I looked at some of the schedules. Yep. So, of course, it's Anaheim again. So, fire up your Cam Fowlers, everybody. We're going to be having him on our team.
Do this again.
Yeah, we're doing it again. We're going to repeat and now throw Killorn in there. So, he's a little bit more interesting to me than some of the players I was picking up. Oh, my God, it was brutal. Simon Benoit, I picked him up a couple times, like that beefer defenseman. They didn't even qualify him, but yeah, that's the level we were at. Cam Fowler, shout out to Cam Fowler. Yeah.
We did have a love-hate relationship with Cam Fowler throughout the season last year.
Anytime you stream him in, nothing, just donuts. And then when you don't have him on your team, he's popping off.
Yeah. Seemed that way for sure. Let's keep talking lest we give Cam Fowler too much screen time here. But we got to talk about Matt Duchene going to Dallas, which is a pretty interesting spot. $3 million 1-year deal there. Obviously looking to have a good season and cash in again. I don't really see the path for him to have a huge season here unless, Jamie Benn kind of tanks next year, which is entirely possible. He's definitely a bit over his skis in terms of his percentages last year, in terms of the luck metrics. So I do think there's a chance that Duchene ends up being the 4th guy on that top power play, the 4th forward on that top power play next year. Unfortunately, I'm a little bit worried about what this does for Wyatt Johnston, who is a guy that I was going to be pretty interested in.
Hmm.
Have had a really promising rookie season, and I was hoping was potentially going to take a big step in year two. I think Duchesne might hold him back for another season here, but Duchesne himself, I think, is pretty interesting. He's always been a pretty solid player. Like last year, despite his much maligned status, 56 points in 71 games. Like that's not a bad stat line at the end of the day. Just
Right.
over 18 minutes average time on ice in Nashville. Probably sees that drop back in Dallas, but he's probably going to be playing with better players in Dallas as well. Maybe not at even strength because the top line seems to be pretty set in stone, but definitely I think if he does get onto that top power play, you could see a ceiling case for Duchesne, at least as a streamer.
Yep, no, I agree with all that. Don't have much to add. I think this again is just another supplementary piece. It's a depth piece, a depth offense piece. So if players go down, then you call up Duchesne, right? He could. I don't know if they're going to keep Dadonov on the line on the second line there with Wyatt Johnston. I mean, if Johnston has access to Duchesne, that might be good for Johnston. But
Sure.
we'll see. Like yeah, Duchesne. I think what we saw last season is probably what we can expect again this season, right? Even with the access to better players, because I think his ice time is going to go down. So he's got 18 minutes, 19 average time on ice with first power play. I don't think that's going to happen. I think he's going to be more like Mason Marchment kind of numbers, like 15 to 17 minutes power play 2, right? He'll probably get 50 to 55 points next season. That's what I'm thinking. But, if there's an injury or like you said, if they take Ben or Sagan off that top power play and they insert Duchesne there, watch out. Yeah. I mean, this guy, he had a 29-point power play performance 2 years ago with Nashville. So he can do that, right?
Yep.
But obviously things have to go right, and it's not something I'm banking on at the start of the season, that's for sure.
Yeah. Next one, Jason Zucker, 1 year again here, 5.3 mil to Arizona. Arizona, another one of these teams with cap space to burn, and they burned it on Zucker. Zucker's an interesting one. Last couple of years in Pittsburgh has averaged right around 10 shots per 60, which is obviously a mark that I like to track. Was 10.8 individual scoring chances for per 60 last year. Previously, he hadn't come close to that in the last number of years, so that might be a one-off, just having a good year, but definitely an interesting piece, something to add to the top six in Arizona, gives them a little more depth for sure. I'm not sure if he really cracks the top line. The Hayton, Schmaltz, Keller line seemed to be getting pretty ensconced as the year wore on last year. Definitely there is some good percentages going their way, but I think that's a little bit who these guys are as well, as they're high percentage players. Maybe not they don't generate the most chances necessarily, but they're pretty good at converting the chances that they do get. So I wonder if Zucker is just kind of a second line player. Maybe he does get onto the top power play, maybe he doesn't, but I'm a little bit concerned about his true ceiling unless he sneaks onto either the top power play or the top line.
Yeah, I think Zucker for sure. First off, Jay-Z, Big Pimpin'. Welcome, Jason Zucker, to Arizona and Dingus Arena, or no, Mullet Arena, whatever they play in. Oh man, that's a travesty. That's tragic. Yeah, this guy's a category league guy for sure. I think he's going to be very valuable there. I think rosterable for category leagues, even if he doesn't, if he's playing a second line role, power play 2, I think he's still rosterable. Like this guy, I don't know what happened. Like you said, he had a great year last year, but it feels like something clicked, right? Like he had 27 goals, which is really nice, but also 198 hits. Oh my God, what the hell happened to this man? He just got angry. Someone, it was like a John Wick situation, right? Someone ran over his dog and then, he just went ballistic. So like, I love that, right? Arizona, actually, man, they have some freaking units over there. They got McBain and they got this guy and they got Krause and just guys that are out there crushing. So I'm interested. I like Arizona a lot for fantasy. I think people are going to sleep on them because they just stink, right? But Zucker it would be a great, late round pick, I think, in your category league, because I don't see why he's not going to hit like this again. I think 40 to 50 points is probably reasonable for Zucker next season as well, as long as he stays healthy, right? But yeah, I think line 2, power play 2 is probably where I see Zucker next season.
Yep. Yeah, I think that's a fair spot. Let's talk about Michael Bunting, who we mentioned earlier when talking about Bertuzzi filling his role in Toronto. $4.5 million in 3 years to Carolina, so he did get a fair bit of the bag there. Obviously a guy who's produced decently well in Toronto. 23 goals, 49 points last year in 82 games. 149th in the league in shots per 60, but 79th in individual scoring chances for per 60. That's obviously a metric akin to that the Hurricanes look at, because they definitely pull these guys all the time. Where do you think he slots in with Carolina, and is he going to outperform that pace? Do you think he gets 50 plus?
I don't know. Bunting's not a player I've ever been excited about. I've probably talked some Yang on the man as well. But that all said, I don't have a ton of context in terms of the eye test. Like, I'm just looking at statistics for Bunting and the opportunity that he had in Toronto. And I mean, 49 points he had last year, and his line mates were like the best players in Toronto for the entire season. So I don't know. Now he's going to Carolina, where it's basically just a rotating lines. Like, you know, there's no consistency there in Carolina. So, I mean, he could be on power play one day, and then they bounce him off and he's not doing anything the next day. So players in Carolina, I'm not too, I like safe. And I don't feel like a lot of Carolina players are safe, especially Michael Bunting, like new player, new team. How's he going to fit in? I think, you know, he's probably closer to 45 points, like what he got this season, at least in his first year there. You know, maybe that develops into more because of some of the statistics you're talking about and the profile that he brings. But I don't see him on the power play there, power play one. And he's probably a third liner. And he's on Carolina. No, thank you, Michael Bunting. Thank you for your service. Appreciate that.
Yeah, I don't have much of a different take. I've talked at length about how much I hate what Brendan Moore does to the lines in Carolina, how he holds down guys like Svechnikov and Jarvis, who could potentially go off and be true fantasy league winners for us if given the deployment necessary. Bunting, yeah, depends where he goes, right? Like, if he's a 16th round pick next year, then sure, because it might be the first 2 weeks of the season that he's on that top power play and I'm loving life, and then after 2 weeks he comes off it and I just drop him. Like, if that's the case, then I'm good with Bunting. But if people are going to chase him up the draft boards because he went to a good team, then I'm going to be out. All right, let's talk about, unfortunately, we do have to talk about this. John Klingberg signs $4.15 million for 1 year to Toronto. So I guess the biggest take that I have about this is you don't really sign Klingberg unless you're expecting him to be your top power play defenseman. So I think that he takes over for Morgan Rielly on the top power play. I don't see any other reason to acquire John Klingberg. Maybe I'm just used to Dubas making actually smart hockey decisions, and that's why I'm thinking this way. But currently, if I had to project it out right now, I would project it that Klingberg is on power play one for probably 60 to 70% of the year, and Rielly on power play one only 30 to 40% of the year. So that's the way I'd project it right now. I'm not happy about it. I think he's going to play 15 minutes a game, and we're paying a third pair defenseman $4+ million a year, and I'm not happy about it, but that's where I'm at. Blake, please talk to me about John Klingberg as briefly as possible.
Yeah, no kidding. I don't know if I see it that way, my man. I think it's just a bad signing. Like, Keefe's still the coach, right? And look what Morgan Rielly did in the playoffs. He was their best player. It was him and William Nylander. Yeah, it was him and Nylander. Yeah. So to me, I think Rielly's still going to hold down power play one. I just think this guy's going to get lost. He's going to be a Tony DeAngelo situation. Tony DeAngelo, like 15-minute guy, or like Shane Gostisbehere on Carolina. That's more what I see John Klingberg here in Toronto. And that's why the move makes no sense. $4 million. What, like, you're paying $4 million for a power play two defenseman. So that's pretty rough, you know, and a bad defensive one at that. That's the other part. Like, this guy's a pylon. So I don't know. That move made no sense. I still do think Morgan Rielly. I'm predicting that Riley's going to be top power play. That would be a surprise to me, for sure, and a really bad coaching decision as well.
Yeah, I'm not saying it'd be the right decision, but if I'm just going by the money, I don't see how you give a guy 4.15 to run your second power play unit and to play on the third pair when you had Erik Gustafsson in your building and he goes for $825K for 1 year to the New York Rangers to do exactly the same thing.
What are we doing
Gustafsson, like we had the proof of concept with Gustafson. He went in there when John Carlson went down, and he was incredible. Like he was a really good power play quarterback when Carlson was out in Washington. So to spend 4.15 million on John Klingberg when you had Eric Gustafson literally in your building is borderline malfeasance. Anyway, let's keep going. Let's talk about the next guy they could have had instead of John Klingberg. Shane Gostisbehere, 4.13 million, literally $20,000 per year less than John Klingberg. We could have had this guy. At least he blocked shots or something. I'm sorry, I'm getting heated.
I'm with you, buddy. Yeah, that's no good.
Shane Gostisbehere, I still think this is a good player, at least for fantasy purposes. I'm not pretending to make any broad assumptions about his defensive abilities, but in my mind, again, 4.13, you're paying this guy to do one thing in particular that he's really good at, and that is run a power play. I think this probably hurts Mo Seider. I would probably project Gostisbehere to be the first crack power play one quarterback, and I think, honestly, that might be the best situation for Seider and the Detroit Red Wings as an organization. I don't know if Seider's truly an elite offensive talent. I think he's quite adequate, and I think he's good enough, and he's probably better than a lot of other teams' best options, but I think Gostisbehere is actually a guy who makes a difference on the top power play unit, and I would project that this is the reason that they went out to get him. Any thoughts on that, Blake?
Yep, I definitely agree with you on this one. I think we saw it last year with Hronik and Seider. They didn't hesitate. They're like, oh, Hronik, power play one. Okay, that's great. You're like, what, Seider? No, he's a rookie of the year. So I don't think they're locked into having Seider be the power play one quarterback. And then that you go out and you sign Shane Gostisbehere. This one makes more sense to me for Gostisbehere to be power play one. And I think we can probably count on that to start the year, right? And as you said, yeah, it's going to hurt Seider offensively for sure. But I don't know. What do you think for Gostisbehere? Maybe like 45 points maybe with Detroit? I think that sounds good.
I think that's fair, at least for a start. Yeah. I honestly think, like, Gostisbehere, if you look at his underlying numbers, like, this is a guy who legitimately could be a like 60+ point player on a really good top power play. Like if you transplanted him in place of Klingberg and you told me that he played 82 games as a power play one quarterback in Toronto, I'd say he scored 60+. I'd be pretty confident about that, to be honest. I think Gostisbehere is actually that good. So yeah, I think he's an immediate upgrade in Detroit over anything they've got in terms of power play. And I think that, yeah, even if he's not playing a ton of minutes and even if the team itself is not terrific, I think 45 points is probably a pretty good bet. All right, we do have to talk about a goalie at some point, I guess, in this podcast, even though we are strict 0G adherents here. Joonas Korpisalo, $4 million per year, 5 years to Ottawa. I've been talking about, I forget which podcast it was, Blake, but we did talk about which situations we'd be interested in seeing any goalie go to and which goalies we might be interested as 0G options just because of the team that they go to. Ottawa is one of those teams for me. Obviously, Jake Sanderson coming up through the ranks. You have the big trade for Jacob Chychrun last year. You have Thomas Chabot returning as the #1 defenseman. You have the makings of a pretty solid defensive core, at least with the top 3 guys in my mind in Ottawa. And so I wonder if there's a ceiling here. I think this is kind of a ridiculous deal to give to any goalie that's not a true elite level goalie, to give 5 years with any kind of monetary value attached, 4 million or higher. But I do think that Korpisalo had a really good season last year. This was probably the going rate on the open market. And I think I'm pretty interested in him in Ottawa. What do you think about him there?
Yep, I'm right with you. This will be a 0G target for me. You can get this guy after the 10th round or after. That's going to be awesome, right? Like this guy, he played great. I liked him a lot in LA. I liked him in the playoffs too, even though he kind of crapped the bed a little bit. Like I think it's good. The problem is the term, right? It's 5 years. Yeah. Like he hasn't really proven anything, and now you're giving him 5 years. Like, but to me, the situation that he's going to could potentially be good, right? It wasn't a good situation last year, but they're going to get rid of DeBrincat. Who do they bring in, from that trade, right? Everybody's healthy. They're back. Timmy Stutz is there. I mean, enough said, right? So and I love Chychrun too. That's a great thing they did bringing him over. So I'm excited for Ottawa next year. And I think this guy, like getting him at that price point is really good. And I think he'll have a good season.
For sure. Let's talk about a few other goalie signings just across the league. Talk to me about anything you think is interesting. Aiden Hill, 4.9 million per for 2 years to Vegas, obviously getting paid for his contributions to the Vegas Cup run there. Antti Ranta and Frederick Anderson both re-up in Carolina. Ranta 1.5 for 1 year, Anderson 3.4 average for 2 years. And then Cam Talbot goes on a $1 million 1 year deal to the LA Kings. Which one of these is most interesting to you for fantasy?
I would think any of the Carolina goaltenders, at least for me, for fantasy, because of the type of team that they field in front of the goaltenders. Like they're just a great team. Their system lends itself to good goalie performances, no matter who you put in there, right? The thing that sucks is that they signed all 3 goalies again. Like, what are we supposed to do in fantasy? All right. And you can't comfortably just go out and get, Anderson, like, cause it's going to be a 1ABC situation. Maybe, like, I don't know. Kochetkov's probably the odd man out there, but is he? I don't know. Like, I can't even say that confidently. So that is just so Carolina, right? Okay. Yeah. We got 3 goalies. Let's give them all just 33% starts and just see what happens. Like, just total fairness, split it down the lines. Like, what are we doing here? But, Talbot to the Kings too is interesting, but why didn't they keep Korpisalo? Much better goalie, in my opinion, at this point in his career. Obviously, the price is fine, $1 million for 1 year, but now it's Talbot and Phoenix Copley in LA. That's a great team, but the goaltending, a little shoddy there. So I don't even know who they're going to go with. They'll probably go with Copley to start based on kind of what he did last season, but he didn't play very well. It's just a good team in front of him. So I don't know. Yeah. And Talbot's probably going to get injured at some point anyway. So I don't know. I think LA's got to be on the lookout for a goalie at this point. But that's an Aiden Hill. I don't know. What does that mean for Robin Leonard? What are they going to do with him? Right? Is he going to be back next season? And if so, what are they doing with him? Right? Because was their number 1, and obviously they just won a cup without him. So I don't know. What does it mean?
Yeah. Yeah, I think when you pay any goalie $4.9 million, you're saying that this is your probable starter. I don't think you pay that to a backup. Tells me that they think Leonard is probably not going to be back anytime soon. That would be my read on the situation there. I'm still not excited about Aiden Hill in Vegas. I think he might get pushed up casual draft boards a fair bit, like maybe like 7th, 8th round kind of goalie. I will not be interested in him for any price below like a 13th, 14th round pick. That's for sure. Not interested in paying based on, 20 games of work. That's for sure. Carolina, I'm really not into either of these guys. The situation, as you mentioned, is solid, but the guys themselves, I'm not super into. I think it might just be an even split, and you're just sitting there wishing one of these guys would, get injured or get traded or something just so that the other guy could be decent. So I'm not super into the Carolina situation for next year just because I think it's going to be split. They did obviously pay Anderson more, but Anderson has been literally made of paper the last number of seasons, and it's all been lower body stuff that seems to come back up year after year. So that's a little bit too worrying for me. Talbot in LA, I do agree. I think Copley is probably going to be the guy. This is a backup contract through and through, 1 year, $1 million to Talbot. Yeah, I guess I'm into Copley just because it's a good situation, and this is a backup contract. It's not like they paid him a multi-year deal to come there and be like a 1B situation. This is a backup deal. It tells me that they're at least thinking that Copley has a chance to run away with it and be a legit starter for them. So for that reason, I think Copley's going to go late, and I'm going to be into him as a 0G option.
Love it.
Let's talk about a few old guys here before we get out. Blake Wheeler, obviously a namesake there for you. $800K 1 year to the Rangers. You got Max Pacioretty, $2 million 1 year to Washington. You got Ryan O'Reilly, $4.5 million 4 years to Nashville. Which of these old fogies are you the most interested in?
Oh my God. Yeah. Old man Withers. Oh, I think I like, this is a tough one. I think I like Pacioretty. I think I want to see what Pacioretty does there. I mean, that's a 1 year contract. I think he can get into the top 6 there in Washington. And honestly, a lot of this is based on his statistical profile, like the things that he brings to the table, like shots on goal per 60 are usually pretty elite with Max Patch. So you got to shoot to score, right, everybody? That's what my mom says every time I watch a hockey game. They got to shoot the puck more. It's like, no, I know, but Like you got to set up a play or something, you know? So, yeah, anyways, I like all these guys as the actual answer, but Max Pacioretty, I want to see what he's able to do there. You know, top six, can he get some time on the top line? Can he, you know, in the second line, daily faceoff is showing Nicholas Backstrom and TJ Oshie. That's plum deployment. That's nice deployment. And if he gets power play one, now we're cooking, right? I think, you know, 60 points, Max Pacioretty, and people are going to be staying away from him. And I would too, right? Unless he's like one of your last picks, right? Because just the injury history, he's coming off major surgery, you know, hasn't been healthy for an entire year. So obviously temper expectations, but I like that. Blake Wheeler, same situation. He's probably going to the top six there in New York, and it looks ridiculous in there. So,
Yep.
I mean, Blake Wheeler's lost a step. There's no question there. He doesn't shoot. He's basically like, you know, an old version of Robert Thomas. But I don't know, that could work. You know, if he gets time on the power play, I like Blake Wheeler too. I think 60 points might be something he can do as well. So Ryan O'Reilly is the one I'm not excited about at all. It's just not a player I'm big on. I even just the eye test. I don't like the way he skates. Like he just looks stiff to me. And I don't know, 4 years there. Why Nashville? Like it sounded like Toronto was trying to lock him up, and he was just like, no. So I don't know. It would have been a better situation for him in Toronto, in my opinion. So I don't get it. And Nashville's not the answer. I don't think he's going to be fantasy relevant next season.
Yep, tend to agree. I think Wheeler makes sense on the top line with Kreider and Zibanejad. I could see him as a facilitator on that line, guy who gets those two guys the puck, both natural goal scorers. Pacioretty, it'll be interesting to see what timeline we're looking at. 8 to 9 months was initially reported. He suffered the injury on January 19th, so that could put him somewhere in the September-October timeframe, right around the start of the season. I think he's probably going to want to take it pretty careful this time around, considering it was the exact same injury to the exact same foot last time around, so he might just let it rehab a little bit longer this time and not really rush it. So it could be a guy that you're looking to stash on IR with your last pick in your draft or something like that. Do agree that when healthy, obviously maybe he's lost a step now with the multiple injuries to the same foot, but when healthy, this is a guy who definitely produces. So there is that note of interest with Pacioretty. And then Ryan O'Reilly, tend to agree. I think this guy is done for fantasy purposes. Just don't think he's not a goal scorer. He doesn't hit. He doesn't do anything other than get like 45 to 55 points every year from here on out. So I just think he's not going to be useful for fantasy purposes. All right, Blake, we've got one last group of players. Tell me if you're interested in any of these guys. We're scraping the bottom of the barrel here, but Daniel Sprong goes $2 million 1 year to Detroit. We've got Evan Rodriguez, $3 million over 4 years, not over 4 years, $3 million average for 4 years, $12 million total to Florida. And we've got JT Comfort getting the bag, $5.1 million AAV times 5 years to Detroit. Any of these guys piquing your interest for fantasy purposes?
Yes, they are. Oh man, I love Daniel Sprong. Yeah, I want to see what the hell this man does. Right? He is an amazing point producer at even strength and in limited minutes. He got 46 points last year. His average time on ice was 11 minutes 25 seconds on Seattle. Whoa. Like, damn, get this guy out on the ice for the love of Pete. So I'm excited just to see where he lines up. He's watch list for sure, right? But after training camp and we see sort of where everything lands, like get this guy on the first line, get Kubalik out of here, put Sprong on there. All right. Really pop off, and give him some power play time, but he'll probably be third liner, power play 2 to start. So that's going to really limit what he does. But I think his ice time is going to go up. I don't think he's going to get 11-25 next season because that's something they were, clearly just doing in Seattle, right? I think he could be closer to like 14 to 16 minutes, probably, Daniel Sprong. And I think that's, we're going to see that in his point production. He's a beauty player. I'm excited about Sprong. And the other guys, Rodriguez. Yeah, that's the other one I'm interested in. I think he's kind of landed himself in a situation kind of similar to where he was in Colorado, which was a good situation for him. I think it's like, again, Daily Faceoff showing him, like, I like to go to Daily Faceoff and look at the lines, even though, we're all just guessing at this point. Like, I think that Rodriguez could be slotted into the top line there with Barkov and Sam Reinhart. I think that's well within the realm of possibilities, and he'll probably get power play too. We could be looking at a 50-point player there, with maybe a little bit more, right? Like, I'm glad he's putting down roots too, because he's been a little bit of a journeyman, just going from team to team and kind of just trying his best, proving himself and not really landing anywhere. So now he's got a little security. I'm interested in Evan Rodriguez to see what he does. But yeah, those are the two of those that I would be interested in.
Yeah, for sure. I agree. Rodriguez, definitely think there's a top 6 spot available. It's up to him whether he's going to take it or not. Definitely think power play 2 is within the cards there for him as well. Obviously a big shot producer, but a really terrible converter.
Yeah, doesn't
He's
convert.
never had any kind of efficiency in terms of converting shots into goals. So definitely not that guy, but somebody who can definitely be a streamer for us. There wasn't actually a lot of streaming opportunities on this Florida team last year. I think Rodriguez is probably going to be that guy for us in the upcoming season. Have no interest whatsoever in Comfort in Detroit. I think that's a massive overpay for his best season of his career, and he's going to be a role player. He might be somewhat valuable in that role, but by the end of this contract, it's going to look atrocious in my mind. So have no interest in Comfort for fantasy purposes. Daniel Sprong, I do have some interest in. This is a guy who's routinely paced very highly in the metrics. I like to look at 13th in shots per 60 league-wide last year. Had a 57-point pace in not even 11 and a half minutes time on ice last year. Is
Crazy.
Ridiculous kind of numbers. So obviously had some pretty high efficiencies to get to that point, but still, this is a guy who seems to have a lot of untapped potential. I honestly don't know if there's anybody more naturally talented in the winger core in Detroit other than maybe Lucas Raymond, who's shown it before, had a little bit of a sophomore slump last year, but you still expect will have a solid career. Kubalik, Perron at this stage in his career, Jonathan Berggren, Robbie Fabry, Philip Zadina, these are all the guys we're looking at. I don't see anybody there who's really going to hold Sprong back if indeed he can be that guy. So definitely going to be watch listing Daniel Sprong and seeing if he can elevate his way up the lineup and up the power play ranks. All right, Blake, we did it. We got to the end of everybody who's signed so far. We still got some names out there. Tarasenko's out there, Kane's out there, Dumba's out there. There's a few names out there that could have some fantasy relevance, but we'll have to leave that to the other guys. We'll have to leave that to Banksy and Hutch for a later date. At this point, I think that's all we've got for this episode. Hopefully it brought you some value, helped you get a little bit better at fantasy hockey today. All the advanced stats you heard today came from Natural Stat Trick. Terrific free resource. Check it out. Many thanks to the band They're There for supplying the music for the podcast. Be sure to check out their Spotify as well. And that's it, folks. Much love.